Ukraine, the Middle East, the Red Sea. Could it be that the new leader of the West is the UK? Welcome to Bridge the Channel. The West is facing a geopolitical polycrisis in Ukraine, in the Middle East, and now in the Red Sea. And it is fair to say that it's having a bit of trouble in formulating an effective response. Could it actually be that the only Western actor who gets it right is the UK? We actually see that a lot of Western actors are having major problem now dealing with all those issues. We see how the EU and the US have scrambled to come up with a new funding package for Ukraine. We also see how the EU and the US are struggling to form an effective diplomatic response to what is happening in the Middle East. Paradoxically, the UK is emerging as the one actor who seems to be getting things right on all those issues. Now, the reason behind the UK's active international presence may actually be that there is a new boss of British foreign policy, ex-Prime Minister David Cameron, who entered the government quite recently. He came back from the Brexit cold, as it were. And under David Cameron, the UK is actually taking the lead on a lot of those issues. The UK seems to be the only Western actor who currently seems to be actively combating Ukraine fatigue, while the US and the EU are struggling to come up with assistance and new funding for Ukraine. The UK is urging the allies to hold the fort and to hold the line in supporting Ukraine against Russia. Cameron has also been the first Western leader to actually articulate some potential diplomatic solutions to the Middle East crisis by actually saying that the West may have to recognize Palestinian statehood while, of course, supporting Israel's right to defend itself and Israel's right to survive. And finally, as is usually the case, the UK is on the side of the Americans in developing a strategic response to the Houthi threat in the Red Sea, while the EU is scrambling to come up with a new mission against Houthis. Now, what is the lesson here for the West from all this? Supporters of Brexit may say that this is a vindication of Brexit. It shows that an independent UK, a global Britain, is actually very good at being a flexible and nimble geopolitical actor on the international stage. But of course, the reality may be quite different. What all of this shows is that the UK may actually feel compelled, now that it's together alone out in the cold, to actually say things out loud and to do things in order to push Western responses. But it also shows that the only real effective response to all of those threats is if the West stands united. The lesson here also for the EU is that the UK will remain important in strategic affairs. By the end of this year, we may be having a new government here in London. We may also be having a new government in Washington, D.C. By that point, it will be clear that Brussels and London will need each other more than ever before. Until next time, make sure you follow Bridge the Channel.